Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my review of Detroit. Wow. Just wow. Trying to gather all of my thoughts and formulate them into something coherent after seeing this film is an experience all to itself. I was physically moved by this movie. I just sat there in the theater, as did so many others after this screening, staring at the screen. I was just flooded with so many different emotions. I don't know that my body or my brain knew what to do with itself. But the movie was successful because mostly I was angry and I was just disgusted. This film is amazing. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. And I'm going to start with Ms. Kathryn Bigelow, the director of this movie. In Detroit, it is especially clear what an honest, truthful, and passionate filmmaker Kathryn Bigelow is. This is such an honest film. She hits on everything. It doesn't feel slanted. It doesn't feel one-sided like you think maybe it will feel. But yet you come out with honest, genuine, and true emotions here. And that's such a huge feat. So huge kudos to her on that. Also, this movie is pretty much perfectly crafted. Oh my goodness. This is not a feel-good movie, and this is not some sort of procedural drama. It takes you through the gambit. Not only from the points of view and the different kind of thought processes you go through when you're dealing with these kind of crazy situations, but also the emotional gambits. Of course, there are highs, there are lows, but a good chunk of this movie is basically a thriller. It has you holding your breath, it has you tense, it has you on the edge of your seat for the entire second act of this film. The majority of this film takes place in this motel, and it is the most intense thing I've seen in the theater, certainly this year. It was so uncomfortable, it was so nauseating, but it was so gripping. And wow, I mean, it was amazing. That second act was amazing filmmaking. And all of our actors here do a fantastic job, from the police officers to the young men and women who go through this ordeal to our side characters. John Boyega, he's great here. Everybody is so good. They are so believable. They all come together to just truthfully tell this horrific story that unfolds before our eyes. And to go back to Kathryn Bigelow and her storytelling abilities and the way she constructed this film, I think it so expertly executes what the problem is. Not only here, but of course in modern day US. And naturally, I think this film was made and released strategic in its timing, because unfortunately it is so poignant. Watching this felt like it could have been filmed and right here in 2017, which is devastating in and of itself, but that's what makes this film so much more impactful. And I think it just adds on to the layers. I think it makes the point that it needs to make so well, in a way that you don't feel preached at, that you don't feel told how to feel. You are taken through this experience. And again, this is a story about police officers interrogating people that doesn't feel like a procedural drama. It feels like a thriller. It borders on horror. And that's what just made it so impactful. But again, this is not one-sided. This does go over the riots, and it doesn't really excuse the behavior itself within the riots. It doesn't really make excuses, or it doesn't really say, hey, it was all justified necessarily. She doesn't make excuses for any of the bad behavior from the African American characters in this film. That's not what she does. But what this film does do is show that the consequences to these actions need to be appropriate. Death is not the appropriate consequence for most all actions that were taken here and have been taken in modern day cases. And then of course we're taken a step further into the fact that it turns into just a power trip and just assumptions and just pushing these crimes on to people without any evidence, without any real knowledge of what it is that you're accusing them of, and using highly inappropriate and illegal measures to try to fit the narrative you're looking for. And in experiencing this event the way that we experience it as an audience with the characters, it shows you how easily distrust is manufactured. It shows you how easily racial tension is brought up, and then shows you how these things escalate and they escalate and they escalate. If you cannot trust the people who are hired and there to uphold the law and to protect and to serve, then what do you do? What do you do? And people, they feel whether I'm innocent, whether I'm guilty, I'm going to be treated the same. I'm going to be beaten. I'm going to be prosecuted as if I were guilty. I can say all the truths and I'm still going to be prosecuted. I'm still going to be taken in. I'm still going to be thrown in jail. Plus, I loved that she added in these hints of just small things that the police officers did to show their dominance and show their disdain toward the African Americans that they were supposed to be protecting. Like when you're guiding women, guiding them by cupping their butt, or pushing them into the car by cupping their butt, or just sly remarks, even if they're complying with you. Shoves, even if they're complying with you. And then it builds and it builds and it builds. You see cops pulling people over for no reason. You see cops creating crimes because you're black. And then, of course, you don't trust them. And then, of course, you think every time they pull somebody over, every time they bust a crime, it's for that reason. Even when the people have actually committed the crime, now you've manufactured this environment and this atmosphere of complete distrust in your integrity and your ability to uphold the law properly, that you get riots. You get complete eruption from the people who are oppressed. And I think this movie really showed how you get there. Because at the beginning, it really was, what's going on? Like, these people are really rioting. And I will say, I think, especially when you're stealing from other citizens here, or you're breaking their businesses down, it is excessive and it is destructive to other common people that live in the same area as you do. But it just showed the institutionalized racism that takes place and how that ends up manufacturing itself in these type of situations. And honestly, this film gives great context to what is happening now. And back in the 60s, they didn't have cameras and video and all that, and they got prosecuted because it was your word against mine. And now it's your word against video evidence, and you're still not being fired, you're not being prosecuted. I have no other words in myself to say it other than people are getting away with cold-blooded murder. And I know there are plenty of people who refuse to acknowledge that race has anything to do with this. You won't convince me of it. Sorry. You just won't. You won't convince me race has had nothing to do with what we've seen. And this film really brought all of that up to the surface for me. It really just... So I have to apologize a little bit because I don't think this review is all that coherent, because it really did just kind of move me into this space where I am literally shook, if you will. And I'm having a hard time describing the impact it had on me. But if we're going to move into the negatives, I really did struggle thinking of what the negatives for this film were. The first one is a very soft negative. And the only reason I'm even including it is because it left me in a negative for the first about fourth of the film. Is we do start right on this event, right on this riot. And it paints the picture of these people are just rioting and these people are just kind of crazy. What are they thinking? What are they doing? We're having senseless violence to have senseless violence. And even as we get to different situations, it still just kind of is all like, well, So there is a great little montage at the beginning that's animated and is gorgeous. It's really creative. So it is a very general, a very sweeping and broad prologue to the actual film. But it doesn't go enough into detail. It just says like racial tensions are high and the Detroit Police Department have known to be a little bit brutal. But it would have been so much more effective and put us into a more complex headspace right off the bat if we had seen some of that. If we had kind of seen how the police officers were behaving leading up into the riots, that helped contribute to such an atmosphere. But I struggle to keep this as a negative because, like I said, I think she just expertly shows it throughout the rest of the film and helps the audience go on this complete journey from one end all the way to the other, get all of the mix, get all of the different kind of sides, perspectives, thought processes through the film, and literally takes you through some of the experience. And I think that was so well done that that's only a minor negative. And then my other negative would be that we do wrap up a little bit quickly. So this third act moves quick. I would have liked to see a little bit more in there maybe, but this already is a 2.5 hour long film, so what are you gonna do? I think she sufficiently gave us what we needed, but of course there could have been more detail. Things could have been more fleshed out. So, but I really think this film is fantastic. I think it is an expertly made film that has moved me more than a film has in some time. As I've said, I was just like physically like shaken from the film. I was like getting so upset in the movie that I was like literally doing this. Like I was like, oh my gosh. Sitting in that theater after the credits started rolling, I was filled with so much emotion. And it concluded just about an hour ago, so I'm still really taking everything in as I record this review. And that's kind of why it's a hot mess, so I do apologize. And some people may be upset with some of what I said here in this video. Some people may be upset that I went on this other route, a little bit more personal viewpoints on some of the current events inside of this movie review. But honestly, I kind of have to say, sorry, not sorry. Because you can't talk about this film without speaking on it. That it just is what it is. And that's how I feel. And plenty of you may disagree. We can have a respectful debate down below if you would like. In the meantime, go see Detroit as soon as it opens. This film is just amazing. Do not expect a feel-good film, but do expect to be moved. This is a film right here. So, full price ticket recommendation for Detroit. So that has been my review of Detroit. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, click like down below, and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on our latest videos. Also, join in on the discussion. Are you excited to see Detroit? And what is your favorite civil rights era film? Let me know either in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!